Alright, let's talk about Paddy Pimblett, and what could be the most important year of his entire career. Because folks, if you've been following Paddy, you know his rise in the UFC hasn't been like anyone else's. Controversial, flashy, doubted, but always entertaining. And now, here we are. A fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 314, April 13th, 2025. This is not just another fight. This is a make-or-break moment. Ranked number 12 in the lightweight division, Paddy is finally facing a top contender, ranked number 7 Michael Chandler, a man who's been to wars with guys like Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, and Dustin Poirier. So, if Paddy beats Chandler, and that's a big if, what does that mean? Let's break it down in a way that makes sense, step by step, so you understand exactly what's at stake. First off, Paddy Pimblett knows what people say about him. Overhyped, protected, not ready for top guys. And honestly, when you look at his UFC fights so far, Jordan Leavitt, Jared Gordon, Tony Ferguson, let's be real, he hasn't fought anyone like Chandler. No one with that level of explosiveness and power. But here's where it gets crazy. Paddy truly believes that if he beats Chandler, he jumps into the top 10. Maybe even top 7. Overnight. And you know what? He might be right. The UFC loves stars. Dana White knows Paddy sells tickets, sells pay-per-views, and if he wins big, they're gonna push him like crazy. And listen to this, Paddy's already calling his next shot. He wants Charles Oliveira, the number 2 guy in the world. Think about that, Paddy Pimblett versus Charles Oliveira. Now, let's pause for a second and think about that matchup. Oliveira, a guy who has finished Gaethje, Poirier, Chandler, Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson, the list goes on. A guy with the most submissions in UFC history. Do we really think Paddy is ready for Oliveira's level? Here's where fans are split. Some say Paddy's ground game is good enough to hang with Oliveira. Others say, no way, Oliveira eats him alive. But what makes this interesting is Paddy doesn't care. He wants that fight because he knows if he beats Chandler, he can call for anyone. And Oliveira makes sense if the UFC is looking to build Paddy as a title challenger. And don't forget, guys, Islam Makhachev is sitting at the top of that mountain. And Paddy has his eyes set on Islam by 2026. Imagine that. Paddy versus Islam, grappler versus grappler, but with completely different styles. But let me tell you something that Paddy is very clear about. He does not care about Renato Moicano. And this is huge, because Moicano is ranked number 10 right now, and calling out everyone, including Paddy. But Paddy is saying, nah, if I beat Chandler, I don't need to fight Moicano. I'm already past him. Now think about that confidence, or maybe overconfidence. But that's what makes Paddy such a fascinating figure in MMA. He's polarizing. People either love him or they want to see him lose, but they will watch. And that's why this fight with Chandler is so important. Because let's be honest here, if Paddy loses to Chandler, all that hype collapses. The people calling him overrated will come out in full force. The UFC might still promote him because of his name, but the title path? Gone. Set back by at least 2 to 3 years. Now let's shift gears a bit. You know who else keeps coming up when we talk about Paddy? Yep, Conor McGregor. There's been a lot of noise about a Paddy versus Conor fight, and here's where it gets interesting. Paddy himself has said he's not chasing that fight for legacy, only for money. In other words, he doesn't think Conor is a real contender anymore, just a cash grab. And let me say this, if Paddy beats Chandler, and if Conor loses to Chandler or someone else, that Paddy versus Conor fight makes sense for a massive payday but probably doesn't move Paddy closer to a title. But here's the strategic part. Paddy doesn't want to waste time with Conor if he can get to Oliveira or even Dustin Poirier. He wants to fight real contenders, prove himself. And that's why this Chandler fight is everything. Let's really dive into this. Why is Chandler the perfect test? Because Chandler is explosive, dangerous, and has legit wrestling. If Paddy can stop Chandler's takedowns, that proves he can hang with top grapplers. If he can avoid that right hand bomb, that shows improved striking defense. And if he finishes Chandler, he instantly becomes a top lightweight contender. But let's be real, Chandler is no joke. He's fought the best, and he's dropped nearly all of them at some point. If Paddy's chin isn't there, if his defense isn't sharp, he could be knocked out cold. So here's what fans really want to see from Paddy in this fight. Better defense. He gets hit too much. Chandler will test that. Prove his ground game is elite, not just flashy submissions against low-ranked guys. Cardio. Chandler fights like a maniac for 2 rounds. If Paddy survives that storm, can he take over in the 3rd? Fight IQ. No more wild exchanges. Paddy has to be smart, patient, and technical. Now let me say this to all the people who are doubting Paddy. If he beats Chandler, he's legit. Period. You don't beat a guy like Chandler unless you're the real deal. And if that happens, a fight with Oliveira makes total sense. But man, if Paddy loses, where does he go? Maybe Moicano, maybe Dan Hooker, maybe a step back to fight unranked guys. And that's why this is a career-defining fight. So, to wrap this up, let me remind you of this timeline that Paddy Pimblett is envisioning. April 2025, beat Michael Chandler, jump to top 7. End of 2025, fight Charles Oliveira, potentially for a #1 contender spot. 2026, challenge Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title. It's bold, it's risky, but that's Paddy the Baddie. He never takes the safe route. And listen, if you're as hyped about this as I am, and you want to stay on top of this journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. This isn't just some random fight talk. This is an exclusive fight community, where we break it all down, no nonsense, no filler, just real analysis and real passion for the game. Because whether Paddy rises or falls, we're watching history in the making. So tell me in the comments, do you think Paddy Pimblett can actually beat Michael Chandler? And if he does, can he survive against Oliveira or Makhachev? I'll be reading all the comments, let's talk about it. Subscribe, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. And you know what? Let's be real here for a second. There's something about Paddy that makes him different from all these other lightweights. Think about it. The UFC Lightweight division is stacked. You've got killers like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot, all absolute monsters. These guys are technical, dangerous, experienced. But what makes Paddy stand out isn't just his skills. It's his ability to own the room, command the camera, and make you watch. That Conor McGregor effect. And let's not pretend that's not important. Because in today's UFC, being able to sell a fight is half the battle. But here's the catch, the double-edged sword. When you bring that much attention to yourself, when you talk that big game, when you walk around like you're already a champ, you have to back it up. And that's what makes this Chandler fight so damn exciting. Because Chandler doesn't care about hype. He doesn't care about followers, about who talks the loudest. Chandler's going to try to take Paddy's head off in round 1. And let me ask you guys this, what happens to Paddy's massive fan base if Chandler starches him in the first round? Does the hype die? Or do people stay because they love the personality, the comeback story? Because let me remind you, Paddy hasn't faced adversity in the octagon yet like Chandler will bring. Sure, he's been tagged a bit, had some close moments, but Chandler is a different animal. And listen, if Paddy survives, wins, and calls out Charles Oliveira on that mic, can you imagine the scenes? The UFC knows that's a mega fight waiting to happen. Imagine the build-up. Paddy's wild personality versus Oliveira's calm, assassin-like vibe. The promos would write themselves. But before we even get there, Paddy has to show us something we haven't seen yet: elite-level composure, elite-level technique, and true fight IQ. And I know some of you are thinking, nah man, Paddy's not ready for Chandler. He'll get exposed. And hey, you might be right, but if he proves everyone wrong, it'll be one of the biggest moments in recent UFC history. And that's what makes this fight unmissable. So, if you're like me, if you love this game, if you live for these moments where careers are made or broken, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're going to be breaking down every piece of this lightweight puzzle, every possible scenario that comes next. Because this isn't just about Paddy, this is about the whole division, the title picture, and the future of lightweight MMA. And if you want to be part of a fight community that's here for all of it, the real ones, no casual takes, you're in the right place. So stay locked in, and hey, let me know in the comments, what's your bold predictee?